The world went silent the moment I saw the photos, the intimate messages flashing on his phone screen. Not from a woman, but from a man I'd welcomed into our home. A man, my husband, called his best friend. My breath hitched, a cold, metallic taste filling my mouth as the meticulous facade of my life shattered. In that instant, every evasive glance, every distant touch, every unexplained absence clicked into place with horrifying clarity. He stood before me, the man I believed was my husband, the father of my children, and confessed, his voice devoid of emotion. I never loved you, Emily. I tried, but I can't live a lie anymore. That was the precipice. That was the moment I realized I had not merely been unlucky in love, I had been deliberately, meticulously deceived. Part 1. The Unraveling Thread. The apartment was hushed, blanketed in the quiet that only a late hour can bring, broken only by the soft, rhythmic breathing of our children in their room. Brian had been out late, a rare enough occurrence that my usual habit of retreating into my own thoughts was interrupted by a faint sense of unease. His phone, resting innocently on the nightstand, began to vibrate, a persistent hum against the wood. It wasn't his usual quiet alert. This was a barrage, a desperate chorus of incoming messages. A prickle of intuition, sharp and insistent, urged me to reach for it. My fingers, trembling, just slightly closed around the cool metal, the screen illuminated, and the world tilted. Not just words, but images. Explicit, undeniable images of intimacy between Brian and another man. My stomach lurched, a sickening wave of nausea. The man's face, though distorted by the angle, was chillingly familiar. His close friend, the one who often visited, sharing our meals, laughing at our jokes, a seemingly innocuous presence in the tapestry of our lives. He had been here in my home, weaving himself into our unsuspecting existence, all while sharing this grotesque secret with the man I had married. A cold dread seeped into my bones, numbing me from the outside in. My mind, in a desperate, frantic attempt to grasp at some semblance of understanding, compelled me to dig deeper. I scrolled a horrifying journey into a hidden world. There were countless conversations, not just with the man in the photos, but with others, a parade of anonymous male contacts, many of whom had also been guests in our home, their presence now tainted with a sickening duplicity. Each message, each explicit detail was a dagger twisting in my heart, shattering the meticulously constructed facade of my life into a million irreparable pieces. When Brian finally stumbled through the door, his eyes a little glazed from alcohol, the phone felt like a ticking bomb in my hands. I held it out to him, my voice a strangled whisper, barely audible above the roaring in my ears. He looked at the screen, then at me, his usual gentle smile replaced by a blank, unreadable mask. He didn't deny it, not a word. He just stood there, his silence a deafening roar. And then he spoke, his voice devoid of emotion, a cold, clinical admission that sliced through the last remnants of my hope. "I never loved you, Emily," he said, his gaze distant, unfocused. "I tried, but I can't live a lie anymore." The words hung in the air, each syllable a heavy stone dropping into the abyss of my soul. The air left my lungs, the room spun, and then darkness. Part 2. The Fading Melody. Waking in a hospital bed was a jarring experience, a blurry transition from the nightmare of revelation to the sterile reality of white sheets and hushed whispers. My head throbbed, a dull ache that mirrored the profound pain in my heart. The doctor, a familiar face from what felt like another lifetime, sat beside me. It was him. The very same doctor Mr. Carter had arranged for me to see, the one who had so gravely warned me about the dangers of infertility if I were to terminate my first pregnancy. His gaze was no longer sympathetic, but heavy with a visible burden. He sighed a deep, weary sound. and the truth spilled from his lips, an admission as devastating as Brian's confession. I was paid by his uncle Emily, he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm so sorry. The words hung in the air, a final crushing blow. My entire life, it seemed, had been an elaborate script written by others, a cruel deception designed to manipulate and control. The fear of infertility, the desperate choice to marry Brian, the years of living in a meticulously crafted illusion. All of it had been a lie, a performance for an unseen audience orchestrated by the very people I had trusted. I felt hollowed out, a ghost in my own life. My body ached, my soul felt utterly broken. But before I could fully process this fresh wave of betrayal, my mind, in a desperate attempt to grasp at some semblance of understanding, pulled me back to the beginning, to a quieter time when the seeds of this elaborate deception were first sown. 15 years earlier, I was 33. A quiet woman navigating the predictable rhythms of office life in a small Pennsylvania town. My days were a familiar canvas of spreadsheets and the distant hum of machinery, a stark contrast to the tumultuous emotional landscape of my childhood. A mother's absence leaves a peculiar kind of hunger. You see a yearning for roots, for a home that truly felt like mine. And so I searched for it in the quiet moments, in the belief that love, true love, was the foundation upon which such a home could be built. I believed in it with an almost childlike faith, even as life had offered few tangible proofs. One evening, the office gathered for a departmental mixer, a rare deviation from our usual routine. The air buzzed with forced joviality and the clinking of glasses. I was never one for crowds, preferring the quiet corners of my own mind, but then a group game drew me in, and across the circle I found myself facing Brian. He worked in logistics, a department I rarely interacted with. He had a disarming smile, a gentle demeanor that felt like a calm port in the storm of social anxieties. He wasn't loud or boisterous. His presence was subtle, almost a whisper. We started talking, and soon those conversations extended beyond the office into the digital realm of daily texts. It felt easy. Too easy, perhaps, for someone like me who had always found connections elusive. For 6 months we wove a tapestry of intimacy, or so I thought. Our conversations deepened our lives, intertwined in a way that felt both natural and at times strangely superficial. Brian was attentive kind, always ready with a compliment or a thoughtful gesture. He listened, or at least he appeared to. Yet there was always a subtle barrier, an unseen wall I couldn't quite breach. Intimacy, the physical kind, felt like a performance, a duty, rather than a passion. His touch was hesitant, his gaze often distant, and deep conversations about his true feelings or dreams were rare, like trying to catch mist in your hands. He would smile, that soft, knowing smile, and I would tell myself it was just his quiet nature, a gentle soul unwrapping himself slowly. But the silence between the words began to speak louder than any of his carefully chosen phrases. A chasm opened, not sudden, but gradual, like a crack in a perfectly smooth surface. I felt a growing sense of unease, a gnawing suspicion that something vital was missing. The love I craved, the deep, soulful connection I believed in, felt just out of reach. One quiet evening, as the city lights twinkled outside my apartment window, a realization settled over me, heavy and undeniable. This wasn't it. This wasn't the home I had yearned for, nor the love that would build it. My voice, usually so hesitant, found its conviction. I told him we should go our separate ways. He didn't argue. He simply nodded, his usual gentle smile, a little too fixed, and agreed. I remember the hollow echo of my own words in the quiet room, a strange mix of relief and a familiar, profound loneliness. I thought then that it was truly over. Little did I know the story had only just begun to write itself. Part 3. The unforeseen. Not life has a way of twisting fates, doesn't it? Just when you think you've charted your course, an invisible current pulls you in an entirely different direction. The weeks following my breakup with Brian were a blur of quiet solitude, a return to the comfortable rhythm of my own company. The brief, tentative connection had faded, leaving behind only a faint, almost imperceptible ache. I was prepared to move on to continue my quiet search for that elusive sense of belonging. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans whispered to me in the most unexpected and life-altering way. A subtle shift in my body, a strange new fatigue, a sensitivity to smells that had never bothered me before. These were the first faint notes of a symphony I never anticipated. The home pregnancy test confirmed it, the two stark lines shouting a truth that reverberated through my very core. I was pregnant. Brian's child. My heart hammered against my ribs, a chaotic drumbeat of shock fear and a strange, burgeoning sense of wonder. This was a possibility I had never truly entertained, especially not with Brian, not after our quiet parting. Before I could even process the magnitude of this revelation, a shadow fell over my nascent joy. Mr. Carter, Brian's uncle and my manager. He was a man of stern demeanor and unyielding convictions deeply rooted in tradition and the impeccable reputation of his family name. He called me into his office, his gaze unwavering, his voice a low, gravelly tone that left no room for argument. He spoke of family honor, of the scandal this news could bring. He spoke of Brian, painting a picture of a man who, despite his quiet nature, truly loved me, but simply struggled to express it. He spun a narrative of a shy, devoted man trapped by his own emotional inhibitions. And then he delivered the cruelest blow, a medical pronouncement wrapped in a veneer of concern. He'd arranged for me to see a private doctor, a man with a sympathetic gaze and a gentle voice who, after a brief examination, delivered a devastating verdict. "If you choose to terminate this pregnancy," he said, his voice laced with regret, "there is a significant risk you may never be able to conceive again." My world tilted. The doctor, a seemingly benevolent figure, was merely a pawn in a game I didn't even know I was playing. Later, much later, the truth would unravel, revealing the chilling extent of this calculated deception. But in that moment, all I heard was the shattering of my fragile dream of motherhood. The decision felt impossible, a crushing weight on my shoulders. On one hand, the man who had just agreed to walk away, a relationship riddled with unspoken emptiness. On the other, the profound primal urge to protect the life growing within me, coupled with the terrifying prospect of losing my only chance at motherhood. The image of a future without children, without the family I so desperately craved, loomed large and terrifying. The thought of abortion, a choice I had never truly considered, was now presented as a pathway to lifelong barrenness. In my confusion, my vulnerability, and my deep-seated desire for a family, I made the only decision I felt I could. I would keep the baby. And because of the pressure, because of the fear of eternal solitude, I would marry Brian. A hasty agreement, a public declaration designed to satisfy an unseen audience to save face. The wedding was a blur, a hastily arranged affair devoid of joy, emotion, or the vibrant hum of newlywed excitement. There was no honeymoon, no tender promises exchanged. It was a contract, a public declaration designed to satisfy an unseen audience to save face. And as I walked down that aisle, my heart heavy with a confusing mix of hope and dread, I stepped into a marriage built not on love, but on a carefully constructed lie. The knot was tied in intricate deception that would bind me for years to come. Part 4. The Unwritten Script. The early days of our marriage for show were a strange tableau of domestic tranquility. Brian, to my astonishment, became the picture of a devoted husband. He shielded me from household chores, bringing me tea in bed, his gentle smile ever present. He would sit by my side, reading aloud, from books, his voice a soothing balm. When our first child arrived, a tiny bundle of pure, innocent joy, Brian was transformed. He was attentive, tirelessly caring for the baby, often taking the night feeds so I could rest. He seemed to relish fatherhood, his eyes softening as he held our daughter. I watched him, bewildered yet deeply grateful, and slowly a fragile hope began to bloom within me. Perhaps I thought I had misjudged him. Perhaps his quiet nature was simply a profound shyness and love. A slow burning ember was finally catching fire between us. I believed in those precious early months that I was one of the lucky ones, that my quiet persistence had finally yielded the family I had always yearned for. The thought of a second child, though unplanned, filled me with an unexpected surge of elation. The initial shock of my first pregnancy had given way to a deep, abiding love for my daughter, and the prospect of expanding our little family felt like a true blessing. Life, it seemed, was finally aligning itself with the dreams I had held so close. But then, amidst the crushing despair in the hospital, a faint flicker ignited within me. My children, their faces innocent and trusting, flashed before my eyes. I thought of the countless hours I had spent on the cold bathroom floor battling morning sickness alone. I remembered the endless nights rocking my babies to sleep, the sweet weight of their bodies in my arms, the quiet intimacy of breastfeeding, every drop of milk a testament to my unwavering love. I remembered the salty sting of tears shed in the lonely hours, tears of joy, of exhaustion, of the quiet, hopeful belief that this was my family, my home. And then, with a startling clarity, the truth became undeniable. I had not been deceived into motherhood. No one could ever take away the pure, unconditional love I felt for my children, the profound bond that had formed between us. That was real. That was mine. What I had been deceived into was a wife, a role in a twisted play, a puppet on strings pulled by others, living a fabricated existence. The realization was liberating even in its agony. It was a demarcation line, a clear distinction between what was true and what was a lie. The pain remained a searing wound, but beneath it a resilient core began to harden. I was a mother, and that truth was inviolable. And for my children, I would fight. I would rise. I would reclaim my life, not just for myself, but for them. The script of my life had been hijacked, but now it was time to write my own ending. Part 5. The Unfolding Path. The decision, when it finally solidified, was a quiet, resolute force within me. There was no grand dramatic gesture, no shouting, just a calm, unwavering certainty. I would not live another moment within the confines of that meticulously crafted lie. My children deserved a mother who was whole, who lived in truth, who was truly free. The first step was the hardest, the unfamiliar territory of legal battles and courtroom complexities. I hired a lawyer, a compassionate woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. We filed for divorce. I demanded full custody of both my children and half of our shared assets. It wasn't about bitterness. It was about reclaiming what was rightfully mine, about securing a future for my children. The courtroom was a sterile, unforgiving arena. The lies were laid bare, the betrayals meticulously dissected. Mr. Carter's carefully constructed world crumbled under the weight of truth. The doctor's testimony, laced with shame and regret, validated my shattered reality. Brian, stripped of his carefully cultivated facade, stood exposed, a man who had chosen convenience over honesty, image over integrity. The judge, a woman with a kind but firm gaze, listened intently, and in the end, justice, in its own slow, methodical way, prevailed. I won. The apartment, the symbol of our fabricated life, was sold, And with the proceeds, I began to piece together a new beginning. 6 months pregnant with my second child, I packed my bags, not with resentment, but with a profound sense of anticipation. I was going home. Not to the home I had created with Brian, but to the home of my childhood, the quiet house of my father in the countryside. He was the one constant, the steady presence who had always offered unconditional love, a safe harbor in the storms of my life. And there, amidst the familiar comfort of his quiet strength, I began to heal. I built a new life brick by brick, a foundation of truth and resilience. The silence of the countryside, the gentle rhythm of the seasons became a soothing balm to my wounded soul. 15 years have passed since then, a lifetime of growth, of learning, of rebuilding. I sit here now in the late afternoon glow of my father's small house, the scent of blooming honeysuckle drifting through the open window. My children, now teenagers, are a testament to the strength that can be found in adversity. They are vibrant, kind, and loved, and they carry no burden of their father's deceptions. I have never told them the full truth of their parents' marriage, choosing to shield them from the ugliness of betrayal. Perhaps someday, when they are older, I will share it, but for now they know only a mother who loves them fiercely, who has built a life of quiet joy and unwavering stability. The scars remain faint echoes of a past that shaped me, but they do not define me. I carry no bitterness, no consuming hatred for the man who stole so many years of my life. Instead, there is a profound understanding no one, no matter how cunning, how manipulative, can ever truly take away the fundamental right to be a mother. And life, despite its profound pain, always offers a path back, a chance to rebuild if only you possess the courage to step out of the shadows of deceit and embrace the light of truth. True love, I've learned, isn't about grand promises or passionate declarations. It's about the quiet strength to protect yourself and the unwavering courage to love and protect those who are truly yours. It's about building a life not on illusions, but on the bedrock of your own authenticity. Grandpa's journal. The weight of a past deception can feel immense, a silent burden carried for years. But what happens when you finally confront it, when you choose truth over the comfort of a carefully constructed lie? Emily's story is a testament to the profound resilience of the human spirit, a quiet declaration that even the deepest wounds can heal, leaving behind not bitterness, but wisdom. Have you ever found yourself at a crossroads where exposing a difficult truth felt like the only way forward, even if it meant shattering a comfortable illusion? What was the hardest truth you ever had to face? And how did it change the trajectory of your life? Share your stories in the comments below. Let's reflect together on the power of honesty, the journey of healing, and the strength it takes to reclaim your own narrative. Your experience might be the light someone else needs to find their way home.